¿Qué tal? Buenas tardes amigos de DBB Noticias, los hago como todos los días desde la ciudad de Londres, Pascual Raúl Zárate Gil. Antes de comenzar, los queremos invitar como todos los días que entre a nuestro portal de noticias, dbbnoticias.com, un portal que tiene el propósito único de mantenerlos bien informados de los distintos acontecimientos locales, federales e internacionales. Y como todos los viernes tenemos a nuestro invitado de lujo, al doctor Werner Voigt. Y bueno, el día de hoy cambiamos a idioma inglés. Dr. Werner Voigt, as every Friday, he is going to share with us his comment. But before that, let me just remind to our forum, our followers, some background about Dr. Werner Voigt. He is a U.S. qualified lawyer who has a very experienced practice in the U.S. in private practice in law firms, one of the best law firms in the world. Also, he has a PhD in Islamic law by the University of Cairo, and also he used to be a lecturer in UPAEP in the University in Puebla, the same as in Bremen in Germany. And now, as every Friday, we are going to discuss a very interesting hot topic. We have read and we have been sharing with you the late news on the conflict between Israel and Iran. At the same moment, we also shared with you a couple of days ago that Donald Trump was attending the G7, this forum that basically gathers the strongest economies around the world, and even Claudia Sheinbaum attended the event, but she was supposed to meet Donald Trump, but in that particular moment, Donald Trump had to leave the event due to the gravity of the conflict between Iran and Israel. Therefore, today, Dr. Werner Voigt will talk about that topic titled "On Monday, Trump left the leaders, the world's economical most powerful nations, in stone disbelief as he abruptly left the G7 summit meeting Canada as the invited guest. How did Mexico President Claudia Sheinbaum react?" Dr. Werner Voigt, good afternoon.
A very good afternoon. Well, as you already mentioned, on Monday and Tuesday, there was scheduled a summit conference of the G7, the group of seven of the most important economies in the world. We're talking about Canada, France, Germany, Italy, Japan, Great Britain, and the United States of America. Well, Canada, the host nation for the summit conference, invited Claudia Sheinbaum, President of Mexico, and Narendra Modi, the Prime Minister of India, and Volodymyr Zelensky, the President of the Ukraine, as guests to attend this summit conference. Now, on Monday, the leaders of the G7, including President Trump, signed a statement calling for a de-escalation of hostilities in the Middle East, while also affirming Israel's right to defend itself, even though Israel launched the initial unprovoked attack on Iran. Well, Donald Trump left the G7 summit in Alberta, Canada, a day early. On his flight back to Washington, he told reporters he is seeking a real end, as he said, to the conflict, not a ceasefire. Trump said Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon. It's very simple. Trump also criticized French President Emmanuel Macron, who had said Trump left the G7 to negotiate a ceasefire. Trump observed on his airplane that Macron, according to his opinion, is a very nice man, but he's almost always wrong. Meanwhile, the United States military has moved a large number of Air Force refueling aircraft to Europe on standby. The United States aircraft carrier Nimitz is also heading to the Middle East, where another carrier, the Gerald Ford, is already operational. Now, on Monday, Democratic Senator Tim Kaine introduced a war powers resolution that would require Donald Trump to seek authorization from Congress before attacking Iran. Well, as of today, after 8 days of hostilities, the war by Israel against Iran has already claimed 650 lives and 2,000 injuries. The situation is critical, and that is certainly exemplified by this legislative initiative, which does not have a chance of passing because the supporters of Donald Trump in the United States Congress will never limit the authority of their hero, Donald Trump. Now, in an aggressive tone, Trump said to Mark Carney, the Prime Minister of Canada, the following: the G7 used to be the G8. Barack Obama and a person named Trudeau didn't want to have Russia in. And I would say, said Trump, I would say that was a big mistake, because I think you would not have a war right now if you had Russia in the G7. Well, that idea was unanimously rejected by all parties to the summit conference. And that was the end of that. Donald Trump was highly offended that no one thought his idea of admitting Vladimir Putin, an international criminal who has an arrest warrant issued by the International Criminal Court outstanding against him, to participate now in the deliberations. And Trump took his plane and left. In Canada, Prime Minister Narendra Modi and Mexico's President Claudia Sheinbaum on Tuesday strengthened the relationship between the two countries, India and Mexico, and explored how to increase cooperation between the two countries when the two leaders met on the sidelines of the G7 meeting on Tuesday. Sheinbaum said on the social media platform X that during her meeting with Modi, we strengthened our relationship. Investments in scientific and technological developments are driven by cooperation, she said in her X post in Spanish. Now, Prime Minister Modi said on X, we both see immense potential in India-Mexico ties growing even stronger in the times to come, especially in sectors like agriculture, semiconductors, critical minerals, healthcare, and much more. We also talked about ways to enhance people-to-people ties. Calling it a very good meeting, he added that he personally congratulated Dr. Sheinbaum on her historic election win, becoming the first female Mexican president at all. The Ministry of External Affairs spokesperson Randir Gyarashwal posted on X that they discussed avenues to further deepen India-Mexico cooperation in trade, in pharmaceuticals, science and technology, digital innovation, and they shared perspectives on key global and regional issues, including priorities of the global South. This was the first meeting between Prime Minister Modi and President Sheinbaum, and it is, from my perspective, a very important step toward diversification of international trade relationships for Mexico, something that we have been advocating for years now, and that would solve some of the problematical trade relationship between Mexico and the United States. We have to recall that 80% of Mexico's international trade is with the United States. And now we have a real chance to increase our ties with India, the most populous nation in the world with 1.4 billion inhabitants. That's 100 million more than in China. Now, the bilateral trade between Mexico and India reached 8.6 billion in the year 2023. So there is lots of room to increase the trade volume in the years to come. Mexico, of course, serves as one of the main trade gateways to Latin America. An important milestone was reached between India and Mexico in the field of science and technology when a memorandum of understanding between India's Council of Scientific and Industrial Research and the Mexican Agency for International Development Cooperation was signed when Marcelo Ebrard visited New Delhi, the capital of India, in the year 2023, when he was the Foreign Affairs Secretary of Mexico. Now, President Sheinbaum was appreciative of India's strides in technology innovation and digital public infrastructure, and she expressed her desire for cooperation with India in these key areas. Prime Minister Modi underlined that the two countries should explore collaboration in the fields of artificial intelligence, quantum computing power, and critical minerals. The two leaders also noted upcoming engagements between the think tank communities of the two countries and the vibrant cultural and people-to-people ties between the two countries, which will promote tourism and massive academic exchanges. Prime Minister Modi also extended an invitation to President Sheinbaum to visit India very soon. Accepting the invitation, and according to Claudia Sheinbaum, she had a very good telephone conversation with President Trump of the United States, who informed her in this telephone conference while he was still in his aircraft flying from Canada back to Washington. He informed President Sheinbaum that he had issued a state of emergency due to the situation in the Middle East. President Claudia Sheinbaum wrote on X on Wednesday, Both sides, Trump as well as Dr. Sheinbaum, described the conversation as constructive, with mutual interest in advancing discussions on various bilateral matters. We agreed to work together to quickly reach an agreement on various issues of concern to us today, Claudia Sheinbaum added in her remarks. Sheinbaum demonstrated her work ethic on Wednesday morning by appearing before reporters at the National Palace in Mexico City not long after she touched down on a flight from Canada where she had attended the G7 summit as a guest. She said, "We arrived about 2 hours ago," and Sheinbaum said she slept a little bit on her overnight flight from Vancouver before getting on with proceedings at her Wednesday conference, the famous Mañanera. In her press conference, Sheinbaum once again acknowledged that President Donald Trump left the G7 summit early due to the situation in the Middle East. You already know the opposition here in Mexico claimed it had something to do with us, she said. To make up for the cancellation of the proposed bilateral meeting with Trump and Canada, Dr. Sheinbaum said that arrangements were made for a telephone call with Trump on Tuesday afternoon. She said on social media on Tuesday that she had a very good telephone conversation with the U.S. president and that they agreed to work together to soon reach an agreement on various issues that concern us today. On Wednesday, Sheinbaum said that Trump apologized to her for not being able to attend the scheduled bilateral meeting with her in Canada. She said Trump even asked her whether she could drop by in Washington, D.C. on her way back to Mexico. Sheinbaum said she told him that she had not planned to do so and that in addition she has a lot of things to attend to in Mexico. She also said she told Trump that there would be another opportunity for them to meet in the future. Today, she added, today we have a shared border that is much more secure. There is an agreement in terms of security. In migration to the United States, there is a very large reduction. So I asked Trump why we don't have a general agreement, an agreement that has to do with security, with migration, and also with trade and tariffs, she said. This has nothing to do with maintaining the trade agreement, which will be reviewed in any case next year, as Sheinbaum said, referring to the USMCA, or TEMEC, as it is called in Mexico. But rather, at this time, we could reach a general agreement between Mexico and the United States, she said. Well, I also mentioned to Trump the importance of recognizing Mexicans in the United States. Mexican families that have been living in the United States for years, that work for the United States, Sheinbaum said. He knows about these families. I raised it with him, and he said, it's true. There are a lot of Mexican families that work for the good of our country, she said. So I suggested this general agreement, and he agreed, Sheinbaum said. She didn't say whether her government would insist on the removal of tariffs on Mexican steel, aluminum, and cars as part of a general agreement between Mexico and the United States, but that would be logical. Sheinbaum did note that Economy Minister Marcelo Ebrard will travel to Mexico to meet with government officials in the U.S. late on Friday, the 20th of June. He will meet with U.S. Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick to discuss outstanding trade issues, that is to say, the steel, aluminum, and car tariffs. It was a good conversation, Dr. Sheinbaum said, referring to what she noted was a discussion of around 20 minutes on the telephone with Donald Trump. The cabinet, the ministers who went with me to Canada were present during this call, Sheinbaum added. Well, Sheinbaum told reporters that she also spoke to United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres for a moment when she and other leaders and officials were waiting to pose for their official group photo. She said he's concerned about the global situation and the importance of building peace. A reporter asked President Sheinbaum whether other world leaders at the G7 told her about how they see Mexico in an economic sense. And she said, they all see Mexico in a very good light. There were a lot of acknowledgments, even praise, about what is happening in Mexico. The importance of what's occurring, the economic importance that our country has, she added. Everyone spoke very well of Mexico. Some people don't want to believe it. It annoys them. But Mexico is very well regarded all over the world right now. We are, indeed, a great country, she said. Well, there should not be these complexes of Mexican president in days gone by who didn't love Mexico, who didn't feel proud. When one is proud of his or her homeland or of his or her people, it is transmitted to the entire world, Dr. Sheinbaum said. Now, she flew to Canada with Air Canada, reaching Calgary, located east of where the G7 summit was held, after a layover in Vancouver. She also flew commercial when she traveled to Brazil last year to attend the G20 summit. Former President Andrés Manuel López Obrador sold Mexico's presidential plane to the government of Tajikistan in 2023. But Sheinbaum has on occasion made use of military aircraft. such as when she flew to Honduras in April of this year to attend the summit of the Community of Latin American and Caribbean States. Asked on Wednesday about criticism of her taking commercial flights, the president responded, "Look, if I went in an army plane, I would be criticized. If I went in a Navy plane, I would be criticized. If I go in a commercial plane now, I'm criticized. If I travel in a car in Mexico City, I am criticized. And if I travel in an SUV during tours in the country, I'm criticized." So what I'm saying is that those who don't agree with me will use any argument to criticize me. Well, Sheinbaum offered an explanation of one important reason why she chooses to travel on commercial airlines. You isolate yourself when you fly on army flights, she said. But traveling on a commercial flight gives you the idea of the reception of the citizenry toward you, even though it's only one sector of the population that flies in our country. So this communication with people on an aircraft is important. And the truth is that until now, the reception of all Mexicans, even foreigners, who recognize us on an airplane has been very good indeed, Sheinbaum said. Now, some journalists and opposition party lawmakers in Mexico described Brazilian President Luis Ignacio Lula da Silva as a misogynist because of the way he greeted President Sheinbaum. Because at the summit, the 79-year-old Brazilian president placed his hands on the Mexican president's cheeks when he greeted her. Dr. Sheinbaum disagreed with the misogynist interpretation of Lula's tactile salutation. Well, Sheinbaum told reporters that if they saw the way in which the Brazilian president greets people generally, they would realize his placing of his hands on a person's cheeks is an expression of friendship. I don't take it as something offensive, Sheinbaum said. It is a way of him expressing himself. He didn't just do it with me because I'm a woman, but with other people as well. He embraces them in the same way, she said. So then, in a few words, finally, Volodymyr Zelensky was the big loser at the G7 summit in Canada because he did not get to speak to Donald Trump at all. And he got no promises from the other leaders that attended the conference. Well, Claudia Sheinbaum, however, and Mexico were the big winners this time because of the newly established close and warm relationship with India, one of the biggest economies in the world and potentially a guarantor toward diversification of Mexico's international commerce.
Another successful decision from Claudia Sheinbaum to attend the G7 for basically all these amazing reasons that you have explained to us, Dr. Werner Voigt, especially the possibility, regardless that she didn't manage to meet with Donald Trump, the possibility to have closer ties with Canada in the foreseeable future of renegotiating the trade agreement we have with them and also with the US. But explicitly, as you have really explained to us, is the possibility to diversify our risk and investment and commercial trade with India, one of the biggest economies. Basically, the decision has been amazing and very well received by very likely by many media in our country and in different parts of the world, as Claudia Sheinbaum has managed to make a closer relationship with these future governments. And like you said, also Vladimir Zelensky really was the loser of this event, considering as well that most of the reflectors was focused on the conflict between Iran and Israel. Same reason why he didn't manage to meet Donald Trump. Regardless of that, Claudia Sheinbaum was really smart in not only focusing in Donald Trump, but also trying to find future allies that could bring additional benefits to our nation.
Absolutely, I agree 100%. This has been an absolute success for Mexico.
Yeah, and we'll keep a very close eye on the future events, especially between Mexico and India. We hope that there will be not only some diplomatic discussions, but eventually more and closer benefit from both sides, and of course, ideally more for our country, that they can we can start diversifying this very the relationship that we have with the U.S. Try to find new partners that unfortunately at this stage we don't have, and that's why we keep depending a lot on the American economy and also on the administration in that moment. And now with Donald Trump, everything seems to be very chaotic, including our nation.
Absolutely, that is the way reality is.
Dr. Werner Voigt, we would like to thank you so much once again for taking this phone call and sharing your comments after this G7, especially this successful event, that decision that Claudia Sheinbaum has made. And well, we're going to keep a very close eye as well on the following days on this conflict, and fingers crossed in 2 weeks, Donald Trump will decide not to jump or join the conflict in the Middle East, because that will maybe represent a very high or an escalation of the conflict that very likely will bring or drag other nations, and we should not discard China and Russia. That will make this a very complicated situation, regardless that it is already a very delicate conflict in the Middle East.
We can only hope at this point, so let's cross our fingers.
Dr. Merboy would like to wish you a great weekend, and thank you so much once again. Speak to you next week.
Thank you very much.
Pues amigos, como escucharon, es realmente una gran decisión lo que ocurrió con la presidenta Claudia Sheinbaum al tener el G7 de las economías más poderosas del mundo, donde porque ha sido un gran triunfo y una gran decisión de Claudia Sheinbaum, pues ha prácticamente logrado sentarse con el primer ministro canadiense, buscando pues mejor fortalecer después de estos conflictos que han ocurrido, y también la posible virtud de empezar a buscar nuevas relaciones comerciales de inversión también con India, una de las economías más grandes, con poder adquisitivo por la población también, que poder hacer una gran diversificación para nuestra economía. Y bueno, así de esta forma llegamos al final de esta breve cápsula y de esta semana de noticias. Como siempre les queremos agradecer, pero antes de despedirnos los queremos invitar como todos los días a que le den like, compartan, dejen sus comentarios y nos escuchamos a partir del próximo lunes con noticias frescas antes que los demás. Hasta la próxima.